a few people have asked this, so
Okay.
I'm kind of lumping everyone together here. But we talked about this a little while ago about what it takes to, or being friends with people and like your friend groups changing as you grow up. So one of the things that people were talking about with their friendships is, what does it take to be a good friend?
What do you think?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to mind is I think it's okay to lose friends. And I think it's super natural and part of life as you evolve who you are in different stages of your life, right? Like friends I had in grade school are going to be different than high school and college. And depending on where your standards are and your values and your mission and what you're striving to do and be, like you're going to shed friends if you're growing and they're not growing with you, right? If you have big goals and aspirations and you have to commit to not partying on the weekends and all your friends want to go out all the time, it's like, well, maybe those aren't the best friends for you to be around anyway. So I think you have to get clear on who you want to be and then who you need to surround yourself with to accomplish those things and align yourself with friends that have the same values and standards. And beyond that, I think if it's what I've learned, and especially through this process, is if there's people that you want to connect with, so say they are people that you want to stay connected with, as you get older, you just don't have as much time, right? If you're trying to juggle a business, you're trying to juggle a wife and a kid and a puppy and all these things, like, well, shit, I don't have a lot of social time.
Yeah.
But I will say the little touch points go a long way to maintain friendships. I think anytime any of your friends are going through a tough time, if you're there to support them or just let them know that you're there if they need anything, when they're going through hard times, if you as a friend aren't there in their corner, they will never forget that. Whether it's a lost loved one or family member or a tough business deal or whatever it is, for you to be there to support them when they're in need, that goes a long way. And I think that's a big point. I think just high touch points, like, and genuine, like, I'll let you, I know you send videos a lot, and I think there's a lot of times we're like less connected as people, and it's easy to send a text, but going out of your way to like send a video or meet in person or a phone call, people don't get on the phone anymore. Just like trying to go out of your way when it's not convenient for you to truly stay connected.
Yeah.
I think that's super important.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with this question. You know, as the question was being asked, I was reminded of a funny parable that I heard. And it's all about friendship, right? And it's like, imagine that God came down to earth and he sat down with you and he's like, hey, Spence, how's it going? And you tell God, like, what, like, why are you so hard on me? Like, life sucks. Like, this is happening and that's happening. It's fucking raining all the time. Like, shit's just always going wrong. Like, why don't you make my life easier? And God's like, okay, cool. But you're just negative about everything, right? And then God goes to JR and says, JR, how are you doing? He's like, you know what? You've created a wild adventure for me. Like, my car broke down and this happened and I lost my loved one and my wife and I got a divorce, and like, man, it's been so crazy, but it's been such a blessing because I've learned at every chance. Yeah. And like, we have the rain, and every time it rains, it's like a miracle. And then the idea is like, who do you think God wants to spend time with? The asshole that's bitching about everything that he's created, or the guy that sees like grace and beauty in everything that he's created? And I just remember this because it's like, who do you want to spend your time with? You want to spend your time with someone that is not going to be a negative energy suck in your life. I think at the highest level, like, that's, to me, I will not spend any time with someone who is just a victim of circumstance. If things are always happening to them, if they're always bitching and whining and complaining, now that's very different than if you're going through a difficult time, right? And you're like trying to figure it out.
Of course.
But to me, the number one thing in terms of friendship today is aligning yourself with people that have a shared value, a shared perspective, and have similar standards. We were talking about standards before, but it's like, is your standard to bitch and moan and whine about everything, to act like life is happening to you? Or is your standard to try to find the good and the grace in the moment and see how you can learn and grow through the adversities, And so for me, that's just the foundational baseline. It's like, are you a good person, and do you add light to my life, or are you bitching and complaining and adding negativity to my life?
Yep.
Beyond that, I think you're spot on with saying how we show up in difficult times is really who we are. And the friends that I have the most connection with, the strongest relationship with, are the ones that were there that supported me when I was struggling the most. When I had the biggest failures, the biggest setbacks, when I maybe did or said something that I wasn't proud of as I was making mistakes and learning and growing, and you grow through that. But to me, it's what type of energy do they live their life by? What values do they live their life by? And do we have shared interests? Yep. And I think if you maybe, because there's a study that says the average man doesn't feel like they have one best friend. So there's a lot of guys out there that feel lonely. And even, like I'm a single guy, just turned 38 years old, run a great business, have a lot of great friends. But just the nature of like my friends getting married and having kids and whatnot, like I end up spending a lot of time by myself. And it's like, wow, it's very easy to see how as we get older and the demands of life pull us in all different directions, it's much more difficult to maintain friendship and connection. And so to your point, I think you have to be more intentional about it, and you have to be more intentional about the people that you surround yourself with.
Yep.
I think we're all going to outgrow certain friendships because our standards or our values change and evolve over time. And so I would just focus on supporting the people that you want to be friends with, being there for them in a completely selfish manner. And I think that's like, to me, that's the nature of friendship.
Yep.
Yeah.
You got anything to add to that, JR? What's your thought?
I think Robin Williams has one of the better examples of what it means to like be a friend, and that's like empathy.
Yeah.
He was, comedic genius. Everyone talks about like how funny he was, but the reason he was funny, in my opinion, was because he had empathy for people. And there's some things that he said. I'm trying to remember where it was at. It might have been in one of his books that I have, but he wrote down that like everyone's always going through pain, and
So true.
most of the time what people want is just empathy. And when you're on stage as a comedian, like it's not so much that the audience wants you to make them laugh. The audience wants you to bleed with them.
Yeah.
They want you to be vulnerable. So like it's not just about like understanding their pain. It's like, here, let me cut myself and bleed with you. And don't actually do that. Please don't cut yourself and bleed with people. This is a metaphor. But people want that empathy. They want to feel connected. They want to feel like they're not alone going through it. Because everyone goes through a ton of shit. But like being that positive friend, I think that's a great it's a great
and
way
it
to start.
can't be false, right? It can't be like made up or bullshit. As you were talking, I was reminded of Mother Teresa. She was one of the most powerful women that walked the earth, and she was poor. She didn't have any financial means, but what she did have is one of my favorite quotes from her is "Spread love everywhere you go," and she's the epitome of that. She spread love everywhere she went, and she served beyond herself, and she loved those that no one wanted to love in different like leper colonies and people with dysfunction, and she was like really famous for going in there and like loving on them and like providing things to them. And I just think that's the essence of being a good human, and true friendship is just like empathy and spreading love and support and encouragement.